The rain came down like a whispered warning as Elena clutched her umbrella tighter and stared up at the towering iron gates of Cole Mansion. Her breath clouded in the early morning air. For most, it was just another gloomy Monday. For her, it was the first day of a new life, whether better or worse, she couldn't tell. The mansion loomed like something out of a painting. Grey stone, towering columns, long windows that never blinked. She stepped through the gate as it opened, its slow mechanical creak echoing in her chest like anxiety. A maid's uniform hugged her modestly. Her shoes were scuffed from years of walking, and her brown satchel hung heavy with hospital receipts and hope. Inside, the halls were silent. She followed Mrs. Hughes, the older head housekeeper, who walked with the certainty of a woman who had spent 30 years in service. Don't touch what you're not told to clean. Don't go into the East Wing. And if you hear the master's piano playing, don't interrupt, Mrs. Hughes instructed flatly. He doesn't like noise or company. Elena nodded, absorbing it all with the quiet resilience that had become her armor. When she first saw Mr. Adrian Cole, he didn't look at her. He merely passed her in the hallway like a shadow in a black suit. No eye contact. No welcome. His cologne lingered longer than he did. There was something hollow in his eyes. Something cold but not cruel-like. He wasn't angry at the world, just done with it. Don't take it personally, Mrs. Hughes murmured later as they folded linen together. He lost his wife. Car crash. Never recovered. Elena's hands paused briefly. Grief. That explained the silence. The sadness in the walls. Still, something in her chest tightened. Not pity. Something else. She began her days quietly. Dusting. Sweeping, cleaning the study when it was empty, always careful never to leave a trace. But her favorite moment of the day came when she stood alone in the grand hallway, under the chandelier, and looked up. That was the only time she allowed herself to dream. Late one evening, after polishing the crystal glasses in the dining room, she walked toward the study, humming softly a tune her mother used to sing. She pushed open the door gently, assuming Adrian had retired for the night. But the fire was still glowing, and he was there. She froze. Adrian turned his head slowly, brows furrowed. I'm sorry. I thought you weren't here, she stammered, eyes wide. You thought wrong, he said without anger, but with the weight of ice. Close the door behind you. She did, cheeks burning. Back in her room, she sat on the edge of her cot, whispering to herself in the dark. He doesn't even see me as a person. Just a shadow. Maybe that's all I'll ever be. She said it to no one. Or so she thought. What Elena didn't know was that the hallway carried whispers, and sometimes, even shadows listened. The next morning, Adrian Cole sat alone in his grand office, a cup of untouched coffee steaming beside him, his mind somewhere far from the spreadsheets on his laptop. The maid's voice from the hallway echoed in his memory. He doesn't even see me as a person. He didn't intend to hear it. He wasn't trying to spy, but the sadness in her voice had pierced the silence he'd wrapped himself in for so long. Elena. He remembered her name now. He hadn't meant to. He rarely remembered anyone's. That whisper lingered with him all day more than the hundreds of contracts, calls, or calendar alerts his assistant dropped at his desk. In truth, Adrian wasn't cruel, just numb. The mansion had been a tomb since Lillian, his wife, died. Her paintings still hung on the walls, her favorite books still stacked by the fireplace, the piano untouched since the night she died. He didn't throw away a thing, but he couldn't bear to look at them either. He found himself glancing at Elena more than once that day. She wasn't extraordinary in the way the world measured it. She didn't wear designer perfume or walk like a model, but there was something in her gentleness, in the way she folded napkins with care, as if every task held meaning. That evening, as Adrian passed by the garden window, he noticed something odd. Elena kneeling beside the gardener's daughter, a little girl with dusty braids and a runny nose. Elena handed the girl her lunch, half a sandwich, and an apple, and smiled, whispering, "Don't tell your father. He'll feel bad." Adrian stopped mid-step. She didn't know he was watching. That night, Adrian pulled out his phone and transferred money anonymously to the gardener's account. He ordered medicine for the girl, and he didn't tell anyone. It was the first time in months he felt anything other than emptiness. Meanwhile, in her small room at the back of the mansion, Elena wiped her tears silently. She'd just gotten off the phone with the clinic. Her mother's tests weren't good. She needed more treatment, more time, more money, but her savings were down to coins and crushed hope. Maybe one day someone will see me, she whispered into the dark. She said it like a prayer, but outside her door, in the long hallway wrapped in silence, Adrian stood still, his hand resting just above the doorknob. He heard her again, and this time, it hurt. The rain fell harder that night, drumming against the tall windows like 1,000 tiny knocks on Adrian's conscience. Elena hadn't returned from her break. Mrs. Hughes paced nervously in the kitchen. She went to the hospital again, said it'd only be an hour. It's been 3. Adrian didn't ask why she visited so often, but he had a feeling. She'll be back, he muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. When the door finally creaked open, Elena stumbled in, soaked through, her hair dripping and her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Good heavens! Mrs. Hughes rushed to grab a towel. I'm fine, Elena said softly, teeth chattering. The buses stopped running. I had to walk part of the way. She didn't see Adrian standing behind the staircase, watching. Later that night, Elena crept into the study, to clean certain Mr. Cole had gone to bed. The fire was still glowing in the hearth. A book lay open on the chair, but the room was still. Assuming she was alone, Elena whispered softly as she polished the mahogany desk. You'd never care if I was sick or starving. I'm just a uniform to you. But I wish you knew what it felt like to be invisible, and still hope someone might see you. She placed a crystal paperweight back on the shelf, then paused. You probably loved someone once, I can tell. That sadness in your eyes, it's not anger, it's grief. I get that, but punishing the world won't bring her back. Behind her, Adrian sat silently on the couch, eyes wide, heart clenched. He hadn't moved. He couldn't. Her words raw, unfiltered stabbed through him, because they were true. He wasn't angry at the world. He was hiding from it. She wiped her eyes, unaware of the eyes behind her, the heart cracking open just a little more. You'll never see me as anything but a maid, she whispered, but I wish I could be the reason you smile again. She left, and Adrian stayed frozen in place, his eyes glistening, his fists clenched. He had heard every word, and for the first time in years, he felt something real. The morning after Elena's quiet confession, the mood in the mansion shifted like air after a storm, subtle but unmistakable. Elena entered the dining hall expecting silence, as always. But something was different. A plate was already set for her at the corner of the servants' table. Eggs, toast, and a hot cup of tea, not the leftover scraps they usually picked from. And beside it, a folded towel. She glanced around. Mrs. Hughes wasn't in the room. Who did this? She whispered. Then she noticed the note, tucked under the saucer. No one deserves to be invisible, especially not you. There was no signature, but the handwriting was unmistakably refined. Mr. Cole. Her heart skipped. That day, Adrian barely spoke, but his gaze lingered longer. He walked slower through the hallways. And once, Elena caught him standing at the library door, just listening to her hum. She froze. He didn't say a word, just nodded once and walked away. Mrs. Hughes cornered her that afternoon. Be careful, she warned. That man lost more than just a wife. He lost himself. Don't let your heart get too close to someone who's still grieving. Elena bit her lip. I didn't mean for him to notice me. He didn't, Mrs. Hughes said gently. You reminded him he's alive. That's different. But it's dangerous. That evening, Adrian met with Dr. Osei, his old friend and longtime physician. You've changed, the doctor observed as Adrian poured whiskey into 2 glasses. The staff says you've been looking up more. Adrian didn't smile, but something softened. Have you ever heard someone speak so honestly when they thought no one was listening? Osei raised a brow. Someone got to you. She spoke like I was already gone. Adrian's voice dropped. Like I was just a shell. And she was right. The doctor took a sip. You're allowed to live again, Adrian. Lillian wouldn't want you to rot in her memory. Adrian stared into the fire, jaw tense. But what if the one pulling me back isn't someone I'm supposed to have. Meanwhile, in the laundry room, Elena sat on a wooden stool and hummed quietly as she folded napkins. The song was a lullaby her mother used to sing, soft, sweet, and filled with ache. She didn't know Adrian stood just outside the door, his hand on the wall, listening like the music was stitching something back together in him. For the first time in years, his memories of Lillian didn't hurt. They felt peaceful. Not a wound, a season, and maybe it was time for the next. The grand hallway gleamed with fresh polish as Elena moved with careful hands and an anxious heart. She hadn't seen Mr. Cole in 3 days, not properly, just brief glimpses, a nod here, a passing glance there. But ever since the breakfast and the note, everything felt different. And that scared her more than the silence ever did. She was dusting the sitting room and she wasn't technically supposed to be in, when the unthinkable happened. A priceless vase slipped through her hands. It happened in a blur, a gust from the open window, her elbow brushing the edge of the table, the ceramic slipping crash, shards scattered across the marble floor like the sound of her heart shattering with them. No. She dropped to her knees, hands trembling as she tried to gather the pieces. I'm sorry. Please, I'm sorry. Behind her, footsteps. Slow, heavy, intentional. She didn't dare turn around. Adrian's voice cut the air. Did you not read the note posted on the door? Elena froze. Her eyes welled up, and for the first time, she didn't hold the tears back. I know. I wasn't assigned this room today. I just wanted to make sure the curtains were drawn. She turned slowly, shards in her hands like fragile guilt. If you want to fire me, do it, she whispered, eyes wet. I won't beg. I know people like me don't belong here. Adrian stared at her, his face unreadable. I've lived invisible for so long I stopped expecting to be seen. I didn't mean to touch anything. I didn't mean to speak when you could hear me. But it's exhausting, pretending I don't feel. Her voice broke. You can punish me. It's what I deserve. A long pause. Then Adrian said quietly, That's not what I heard you say, that night. Elena's breath caught. She looked up, eyes wide. He stepped closer. I wasn't asleep, Elena. I heard everything you said. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The floor felt like it was disappearing beneath her feet. I didn't mean to, she whispered. I thought I was alone. I know. Then why didn't you say anything? Adrian looked away for a moment, then said, Because I didn't know how to answer a truth. I've been afraid to admit to myself. He walked past her, crouched, and gently lifted a shard from her palm. Their fingers brushed. I'll have the vase replaced. Don't touch the glass. You might get hurt. She stared at him, stunned. He didn't yell. He didn't fire her. He saw her, and for the first time in her life, Elena was terrified of being seen. Elena didn't sleep that night. She lay on her narrow cot, staring at the ceiling, her heart pounding with every echo of Adrian's voice playing back in her mind. I wasn't asleep, Elena. I heard everything you said. I didn't know how to answer a truth. I've been afraid to admit to myself. The words felt like a dream, or a mistake, or worse, a moment he'd regret. By morning, she had made a decision. Avoid him, completely. Pretend the vase never shattered. Pretend she never whispered her heart to a man made of stone. She kept her head down during chores, skipped cleaning the rooms she knew he'd be near, refused to enter the study, the kitchen, the hallway outside his suite. But Adrian noticed. At breakfast, she wasn't there. At lunch, she vanished again. By evening, he was standing outside the laundry room with a note in his hand. He waited until the machines finished spinning before slipping the envelope under the door. Elena stared at the folded paper for a full minute before picking it up. You gave me words when I thought I didn't need any. Now let me give you some too. I'll be in the garden tonight after dinner. Come, or don't, but please let me finish the conversation you started. AC. Her fingers trembled. She reread it 4 times. The garden glowed with warm lantern light as Adrian stood beneath the old olive tree, hands in his pockets. Expression still unreadable, but softer than she'd ever seen it. She didn't make a sound, but he turned the second she stepped on the grass. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said gently. I almost didn't, she admitted. They stood in silence for a beat before he spoke again. When I first heard you talk that night, I was angry. Not at you, at myself. Because everything you said, I'd already thought. I was punishing the world for something the world didn't do. He paused. Lillian, me wife, was the best part of me. And when she died, I stopped trying, stopped seeing, stopped living. Elena watched him carefully, her throat tightening. I didn't mean to hear you, but I'm glad I did, he continued. You spoke to a version of me that even I had buried. She shifted nervously. I didn't mean for you to hear anything. It wasn't a plan. I know. He took a step closer. And I'm not standing here because I pity you, or because I'm lonely. I'm standing here because for the first time in 3 years, someone saw me and I saw her back. Elena blinked, stunned. Adrian searched her face. I don't know where this goes. I don't know if it should, but I know I don't want to go back to silence. Elena finally whispered, I've never felt more seen and more scared than right now. He smiled, small but real. Then we're even. Days passed, but the silence between Elena and Adrian was no longer cold. It was a silence filled with something tender, something unsaid but understood. They didn't rush. He didn't pull her into declarations. She didn't fall into fantasies, but the air between them changed. Adrian began leaving the study door open when she cleaned. He asked about her mother's health. He started playing the piano again, quiet melodies that made Elena pause at the edge of rooms just to listen. One evening, she found a small envelope tucked into the pocket of her apron. Inside, a card. Your mother's treatments are covered. No debts. No conditions. She deserves to live. You deserve to breathe. AC. Tears blurred her eyes as she clutched it to her chest. She rushed to the greenhouse behind the estate, where she knew he'd be trimming the vines. I didn't ask for charity, she said breathlessly. Adrian turned slowly, his expression calm. And I'm not offering charity. Then what is this? He stepped closer. It's what people do when they care. And I do. More than I ever thought I could again. Elena shook her head, her voice cracking. I'm still the maid. I still sweep your floors. The world will never look at us and understand. Adrian reached for her hand. Let the world whisper. We know the truth. And we don't have to whisper anymore. Her heart thundered. They stood there for a long time, beneath the moonlight, her hand in his, her fear melting into something softer, acceptance. And maybe even love. 3 months later. The Cole mansion wasn't silent anymore. Music floated through the halls. Laughter echoed during meals. And on weekends, Elena's mother sat in the sunroom with a blanket and a smile, sipping tea. Adrian and Elena walked together through the garden often, not as Billionaire and Maid but as two people who healed each other. Mrs. Hughes once said, "Be careful, child. Don't fall too close to a man buried in grief." But Elena didn't fall. He rose to meet her. And neither of them would ever live in silence again.